I don't tell this one very much. People want monsters or flash, and you don't get either. You get the wrong kind of real. This happened to me in the early spring of 2011. It was up in the driftwoods, outside a little logging town in Wisconsin. I was 27 years old at the time, working on a seasonal logging crew. The pay was garbage, the hours were long, and the guys that I worked with were the kind of people who like to drink in silence and not talk about anything. I guess they were the perfect crew for keeping secrets. We were coming back from a skid site after a 12-hour shift. We had 2 rigs and 4 guys in total. It had snowed the night before, and by the time we were coming through the stand, the snow was crusted and crunchy, like some old frozen bread. The road was a half-mile of ruts and roots and pine needles. The sun was sinking under a cloud bank, the kind that makes everything look like somebody rubbed grey paint over it. Somewhere near the bend by Old Man Harlan's place, the second truck spun his wheel and got stuck in a patch of slush. We all climbed out to try and push it out. We were all cursing, but continued on shoving with all of our might. It was the kind of dumb, macho man thing that men do when their diesel is full of pride. It was on the passenger side, hands on the axle, when I heard something in the trees. It sounded like what I can only describe as a long, low scraping. It was like something big was moving a long way on wet branches. Then I heard a breath that I know did not come from anyone on our crew. I remember looking up and thinking, big dog. Wolves, coyotes, we tend to have a few of those around where we are. I thought, fine, nothing really to panic over. Then it stepped out. Now, I've seen plenty of big animals. I grew up around dogs and hunting and stray things. This was not an animal in the way that we all understand animals. It stood up on 2 legs, like a fucking man would. It had hunched shoulders, long arms and hands that looked like they might be paws. Everything about its appearance screamed dog-like animal, but everything about its posture screamed human. Its head was elongated, and the skull was tapered into a snout. The thing's ears were high and ragged, its fur hung in patches. There was mud and old scars visible on the thing. Its mouth was closed, but the lips were pulled back enough to show teeth that caught the dying light. They looked like tiny little knives all in a row. We all froze once we had caught sight of it. It was impossible to miss. The truck driver was the first to make a sound. He let out a short laugh that was half scared and half nervous. The thing looked at him, and that laugh died in his throat. It did not run. It did not bark or show any frantic behavior or howl or anything like you would expect. It had the kind of calm that scares you more than a scream. It was acting like a predator, completely in control of the situation. It was clearly just observing to gather more information. It leaned forward, as if to get a better look at all of us. I could see its eyes when it did that. They were not animal eyes like you would typically expect. They were narrowed, and the pupil was vertical and amber in color. Those eyes just followed along every single time that we moved, sometimes moving independently of one another to watch multiple people at once. It was just waiting and observing, and it freaked the fuck out of me. Then, it suddenly moved. It took a quick, deliberate step, in a motion that was so quick, it took my brain more than a second to register it. I had my hands on my pocket knife and was holding my breath so tightly, I thought I might pass out. It moved so quietly, the only thing that changed was our world got smaller. One of the guys made a small noise, and it snapped its head towards him like it had been waiting for that sound, and I swear, the temperature dropped a degree. Its muzzle twitched. It opened its mouth a little, and made a sound that was nothing like a bark or a howl. It wasn't human-like either. It was low and vibrating, and sounded more like wind in a hollow log. We all took a step back. The rope slipped, and the skidder made a metal shriek. The truck driver swore and said something about backing up the rig. This thing just stood up there, towering over us and watching while we fumbled to gather our tools. One of the guys, Mike, reached for the rifle he kept in the truck because he liked to think that he was the tough one. He raised it and pointed it at the thing. For a stupid second, there was this electric hopefulness in him, like a kid with a BB gun, like he could actually scare the thing off or do some serious damage to it. The Dogman looked at the barrel, then at Mike, and then back at the barrel. It cocked its head in a way that looked almost, and I mean almost, human. Mike blinked. He started to squeeze the trigger, and his face went slack. He did not fire. I don't know why. I don't know if his hand shook, or if the thing did something to his head, or if he actually thought better of it. Whatever. He lowered the rifle, like someone was forcing it down at the end of the barrel with their hands. That's when the thing just smiled. It was a slow, deliberate curling of the lip that showed wet, broken teeth. Then it just turned and started slowly moving back into the tree line. It was like the thing just enjoyed playing with us and seeing our reactions, that the fun time was over and it had grown tired. It stepped over a fallen birch tree, and after that, it just faded into some shadows, like it never existed. We were all breathing heavily, like we had sprinted even though we had not. Someone whispered, "What the hell was that?" And the sound of our voices made the forest seem deafeningly loud. No one knew. No one had seen anything like it before. Mike said nothing. He was just deathly pale. I tried to ask him why he did not shoot, and he just got really angry at me and screamed, "I don't know. My hands wouldn't let me." After that outburst, we just sucked it up and got back to work. We pushed the rig free finally with hands that trembled. Nobody wanted to look in the trees. Nobody wanted to talk about it anymore. We didn't even tell the boss for 2 days. It felt like something private. Then, word slipped eventually. Alcohol tends to make even the most frightened of men start talking. It wasn't long before the whole company had heard the story. The boss smiled the smile of a man who had heard everything and knows how to flatten a story. You saw a wolf maybe. You saw a stray that had been in a fight. He did not make us write a report, but he told us to stop telling people. Told us it could spook the crew and cost us contracts. Practicalities, he said. He handled it like a workplace incident because that is how he had to handle everything. But that thing, it was far from gone. That night, 2 weeks later, we were leaving a job at dusk and we found tracks along the skid road. They were huge impressions, like a human foot, stretched and clawed. No one was joking. Mike had shifted in his sleep one night, and when he woke up sweating, he said he dreamt the thing had been in his bunk at 2 a.m, just watching him breathe. What haunts me is not the thing itself. It's the way it seemed to know us, and then chose not to act on us. It could have turned and torn through a man like a paper sack, and we were standing there with tools and rifles, and nothing but noise. It had the advantage, and it used none of it. Whatever it was, it had self-control and intelligence. I don't know exactly what it did to Mike. I don't know if it was just paralysis from fear, or if it actually stopped him from pulling the trigger somehow. I never could get anything more out of him about that, no matter how much alcohol you gave him. It was the one thing that would just make him shut down and wall you off. The job that I had can be bloody hard. It was from dawn until nightfall, wiggling through rough terrain, setting markers, and checking measurements needed for road construction. I'm a road surveyor. I always come home dirty and wet and especially tired. Each road has its own unique challenges, which ultimately means that every job can be quite different. It ends up making my work more complicated. During the jobs, I would be accompanied by my crew. The crew consisted of me and 5 other men. The most experienced person there was definitely old Sam. He had enough experience for a lifetime with the company. He knew every single little trick that there was. He had a long white beard and a big scar across his face. One time, during one of his jobs a long time ago, Old Sam was in charge of removing trees from the place where roads would be built. As they were cutting down the trees, one of them began to fall in the wrong direction, directly at the crew. That tree killed 2 people that day and injured Old Sam pretty well. Maybe my face looks like a bird did its business on it, but at least I'm alive, he would say, during his many retellings of the story. The other men in the crew I will just call A, B, C, and D, with D and C being in charge. D was what we like to call the joker of the group, constantly cracking jokes of some sort. Many were lame, but there were some good ones thrown in there too. On the other hand, A was a calm man who did not talk much. The guy was an introvert, but he was a good man with a passion for collecting rare items. C was a huge nerd who told us a new fun fact every morning while we drank coffee, and B was the grumpy guy who always had some complaints about everything. We all got along pretty well though. It was a pleasure working with these dudes. However, everything took a turn for the worse last year around summertime. I was 3 weeks away from vacation and could not wait to get away from my job and recharge my batteries, but before I could do that, I had one more job to finish up. We were tasked with charting a path through an old, infamous forest located on the outskirts of a small town that I will just refer to as Greenwell so that I don't dox myself. People were terrified of these woods and would avoid them at all costs. Allegedly, the forest near Greenwell was haunted. Some people talked about ghosts or even witches being out there, but strangely enough, most of the local stories were about werewolves or some kind of dogman. People claimed to see shadows flitting between the trees and hearing howls that would echo at night, but the actual scary part was the reality of this place, which was that people had disappeared going through those woods. They had disappeared enough to the point where it could not just be a coincidence, in my opinion. Naturally, my team and I were skeptical of all of that, but a job was a job, and this one paid almost double because many companies refused to take it on. Our first day, we decided to start at dawn. Our plan was to survey the land and plan the road's path, marking trees and any major obstacles that needed to be removed in order to make space for the road. The forest was dense, consisting mostly of old oaks and thick underbrush. The sun barely shone through the canopy, and because of that, it was very chilly in there. The forest was wet and muddy all over, but luckily, we were prepared and dressed up properly. We could hear the sounds of the bugs and different animals all around, but nothing out of the ordinary so far. Probably thanks to the stories we had been told, we were kind of on edge. I would often get chills on my body, and that strange feeling of being watched. Dee would try to joke and banter to keep our spirits up. "Come on ladies, we got calls," he would say. As we continued our work, strange things started to happen. It began when I saw in the corner of my eye a very quick shadow moving amongst the trees. I did not want to bother or scare the crew, so I did not mention it, because it could be anything. But moments later, A spoke up, saying, "Feels like we're being watched," while he rubbed his neck. "Yeah, I think I just saw something just now too," I added. "Just a deer," B said. The day after that, we started by cutting down the trees. Old Sam was in charge of the truck and pulling the trees out, and the rest of us were using chainsaws to cut them down. After some hours of work, we decided to take a break. As we cooled off, we were walking among these uncut trees to see how many we had left. "Guys, come look at this," C yelled to us. We quickly all gathered around to see what C found. Out on one of the trees, there was a massive claw mark, and that was not all. The mark was covered in some sort of red liquid. It looked like blood. "Sam, what do you think this is? Maybe a bear or a wolf?" I asked. "Well son, to be honest, I saw many wolf and bear claws in my time, but this one looks sort of new. I guess a bear could have made it, but it looks deeper than what I've seen, and bigger too. And what do you make of that liquid? Is that I did not manage to finish my sentence as Sam cut me off. It's tree sap, don't worry about it. I don't think Sam actually believed that. I think he believed that it was blood. We all knew that. After that, we picked up the pace, trying to finish as soon as possible, and luckily, the rest of the day went by uneventfully. As the days went by, the sense of being watched grew stronger. We would hear twigs crack, see shadows move between trees, and hear howls in the distance, long and terrifying. It seemed more and more to us like we were being hunted. What I think was really the breaking point was the moment we started to find dead animals in the woods. Things like rabbits and squirrels, but also some wild boars and deer. They were mutilated, and there was blood everywhere. But the worst were those claw marks, because they were identical to the ones we found on the tree, but deep in the flesh of animals. At that point, even Dee got serious and started to say that we needed to finish the job quickly. On the 8th day, we were working late, and the sun had already fallen down. We were still deep in the forest, marking measurements for the road, when we heard a scream. It sounded like old Sam. It sounded like he was in a lot of pain. He was yelling for help and screaming. We tried to find him, but it sounded like he was constantly changing locations, like he was being dragged away. We were all running around in panic circles, using flares and flashlights, hoping to spot him, but the only thing that we heard were those pain screams. And suddenly, for a few moments, there was silence. Sam, she yelled. And then I heard the most blood-chilling sound in my life. I heard something like bones cracking, but not the normal way, like when you fall from a skateboard wrong or something. It sounded more like the noise when a dog eats and breaks bones. But there was not a dog out there. It was something else, and it was chewing and breaking someone's bones. It took us a moment to put ourselves back together and call the police, but they just said that we needed to wait for the morning to start with the search. The next day, the police wanted to use some dogs to help them find old Sam by using the smell from one of his shirts, but the dogs though, they were too scared to go into the woods. They don't usually do that, one of the police officers said. Eventually, they did manage to calm the dogs down, and they entered the forest. It did not take long for the dogs to find old Sam, or, to be precise, what remained of him. They found old Sam and his clothes in pieces all over the place. We were dumbfounded. Sam was like a father to us, and now he was just dead. Dee was angry, swearing to kill the guy that did this. Local police and forest rangers kept assuring us that it was a bear attack, despite the clear evidence we kept giving them. In the end, we all decided that we would stay and finish the job that we started for old Sam. During the ride back from the forest, I began to talk away. So, those stories about werewolves, huh? What do you think about that now? To be honest, I was always pretty open-minded about stuff like that. Ain't there like millions of acres of forest in the world? Don't you think that somewhere there's some sort of mysterious thing? I replied to him, the only thing I'm sure of is we need to get this done so we can leave. Talking with A about that caused me to think about werewolves a bit too much. Call me crazy, but I decided to take a silver knife to work with me, just to be sure. The next day was our last day in those woods. When the sun started to set, that is when the growling started. C quickly took charge and said that we were finished and that we were leaving. Now stay close and move fast, guys. If you see anything, yell. I brought a rifle just in case. We were practically running, my heart jumping around in my chest. I could not stop thinking about what happened to Sam, and I did not want that to happen to me. Just as we reached the road where we parked our cars and trucks, there was a loud growling sound coming from behind us. Then we heard the snap of a broken stick. I turned around and saw him between the trees, a few yards away. There was something standing on two legs. I thought it was a person at first, but they were bigger, and the body was much more muscular, and it only took a second to realize it was covered in fur and had a canine-shaped head. I especially noticed the long arms with clawed hands. I stood stock still, just like the rest of the guys, until it ran towards us. I was still frozen in shock when B slapped me in the face. "Come on, man, wake up. We need to go." I quickly woke up from my trance, and we ran towards B's car, but whatever that thing was, it was faster. Something grabbed me by the leg. I yelled in pain and fell, thinking, this is it. This is how I die. But then I remembered the silver knife I had brought with me. In the blink of an eye, I pulled it out and stabbed at the thing. When it made contact, I heard a whimper, and the thing ran off back into the forest. Maybe I was in the clear, but before long, I passed out. When I woke up, I was in the hospital with bandages on my leg and in a heck of a lot of pain. A nurse said I was lucky to be alive, explaining that my leg had been deeply cut. I then asked what happened. Of course, I was told the bear had come back and attacked us. All I could say was, it was not a bear. And when she asked what I meant, I couldn't really explain, because you don't go telling random people you think that a werewolf tried to kill you. We never did have to go back to that road. It was finished without any incidents by a different crew. But the people who did come to bring down the cement, I heard, said that they had heard howls from time to time. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. Bime, I am a scout leader. I was around 27-ish years old when this happened. I was just trying to find myself and religion, etc. I decided to go to the Ute tribe, since hell, the Native Americans are well known for spirit quests, and I already had a friend from the tribe. It should be said that this is set sometime in the late 70s. I am an avid outdoorsman, / in a woods kind of guy, so I also bring along a 1903 Springfield in 3006 and some 38 revolver. I keep the 1903 Springfield in my truck, but I gotta keep that thing on me, so I stow the 38 revolver in my pants. I meet up with a local tribe and get introduced for a friend. I get to know a couple of the head tribesmen and medicine men who conduct the rituals and help with spirit quests. After a while, I asked to join them for a sweat lodge / peyote session. Since I've gotten in cool with them, they decide to agree. I have to drive and follow the tribe to some religious / sacred ground where they have set up a sweat lodge area. As I stated before, I keep the rifle in the car, but bring along the revolver in my pants. As per the custom, I remove my shirt and shoes, but keep my pants on. They begin the ritual, and everything is going okay. The head tribesman there begins chanting and telling native stories and legends of the tribe. I start to hallucinate to the stories, but I am staying semi-coherent. After a while, a howl breaks the air, and the head tribesman grows quiet. The men listen in and hear large steps approaching the tent. Soon, vicious snarling and growling can be heard. The head tribesman starts praying loudly in native and starts encouraging the others to do the same. Another howl is heard, and this time it's behind me. I quickly produce the .48 and snap around to shoot the creature. I hear a howl of pain before a large paw slashes open the tent. Shortly after, movement can be heard of the creature running away from the tent. I see a large, patchy-haired creature with a small bloody gash in its side from the bullet. Now, the head tribesman is urging everyone to move towards the vehicles that they came in. I rush back to my truck and retrieve the rifle. I turn quickly to see the rest of the tribes also producing firearms from the car. They all start running after the Dogman creature, popping off random shots towards it. The Dogman is now rushing towards a wooded creek bed, and while it does, I try to place at least one good shot in. I steady myself and level the rifle center mass at the Dogman, and I pull the trigger as calmly as I can. We all hear another howl of pain as it just makes it into the woods. Our group decides to keep booking it towards the creature, and eventually, we make it to the wooded creek bed. Upon reaching the creek bed, we all notice 1. We can no longer hear its loud footsteps. 2. The tracks end as soon as it hits the creek. And 3. It is almost impossible to see. After re-evaluating possibly getting eaten, we decide to stay grouped up, guns at the ready, and slowly start moving up and down the creek, looking for tracks on either side, and cannot find any. We quickly all realize it could not have made it any farther down the creek without us being able to see it once we got to the creek. We all decide to quit the search and head back to our vehicles. Shortly after, the tribe did not allow anyone near this part of the reservation. That face when I shot this thing with 30-06 and it did not go down. The head tribesman also stated that it could not have been a hallucination as everyone saw it and peyote is not powerful enough. So, that was the time my scoutmaster encountered a Dogman. Is he common in the cryptids of Utah/Ute natives? Hey X, I don't really know what the procedure is on this board, but I just had a fucking scary experience happen to me and my mates. I'm from K, by the way. If you guys don't know, there is a long-time tradition in northern Michigan called polar bearing. It is pretty much just camping in a dugout snow cave or tent in the middle of winter. Me and my friends went up to Gaylord, I know, stupid name for a city, to hike/camp in the forest. We are all major shitheads and brought our AR-15s, various handguns, and my one buddy's Saiga he had just bought. Our plan was to hike to the campsite and then go shooting varmints later in the day. We got to the trailhead and got our shit ready for a hike. There was no one else on the sign-up sheet for staying the night, so we were all pretty happy. We hiked in for a few miles until we found the campsite. The place was a fucking wreck, shit and trash thrown everywhere. We were pissed at the previous hikers for leaving such a mess. After we finished cleaning the campsite, we split into groups to go find small game. I went with my buddy, Dakota. He had the Meme Gun 2000 to try and track down small critters. This might be the time to tell you, I had a 22 on me for red squirrels. They are some tasty buggers. We start walking through the buds until my buddy finds some prints in the snow and mud. They were a bunch of coyote tracks, but I thought they looked a bit weird as the paw was too big, and the spaces separating them were a bit off. Dakota did not care that much about specifics, and all he cared about was bagging a few coyotes. Later that evening, it was getting dark, and I wanted to go back to camp. We did not have MVGs or any of that fancy shit, so the chances of getting something was minuscule. I had been getting bad vibes all day because of all the black squirrels that I saw. They are major bad luck, and if you kill them, you supposedly get cursed. I digress. My buddy Dakota wants to stay out longer, and he and I bicker until we hear a familiar yipping. Coyotes. Dakota gets his stupid fucking shotgun and shoots the slug where the yipping was coming from. I scream at him to stop because we had not even seen the little buggers, yet alone had the time to aim at one. I turn on the spotlight I had brought, aka giant ass head flashlight, and start surveying the forest. I see a coyote in the edge of the opposite tree line, but it's a bit odd. For one, it didn't bolt when it hears the shotgun, and it was on its hind legs. The thing was standing up, and on closer inspection was way larger than a coyote. My friend shot at it, but it just ran as he fired. It fucking ran, like on two legs. We were super freaked at this point, and booked it to the camp. As we ran, we heard it howling, and almost pissed ourselves. We made it back to the camp, and told the rest of our friends what we saw, and that we needed to book it out of there. They laughed at us, and told us that we had too much to drink. We kept on trying to get them to leave, but all they did was laugh at us, until my friend Kyle saw it. It was at the edge of the campfire light, just watching us. Kyle was having none of it, and shot the fucker with his Glock. Wrong move. That just seemed to piss it off, and it started screeching and ran out of sight. All of us are scared out of our minds by now. We did not even pack. We just grab our rifles and start heading for the trailhead. We haul ass, but whatever that thing was, it was fast. We heard it coming from behind us. I was taking up the rear and swiveled just as the thing was 5 feet away from me. I unloaded my entire mag into the thing and it dropped. I had already soiled myself at this point, and I started running as fast as I could with the rest of my friends. We heard more of the howling the rest of the way, but never saw another one of those things. We made it to the car, and once I got cell signal, I called 911 and told them what happened. The operator just thought I was drunk, so my buddies go to the nearest ranger station and tell them what had happened. They say some shit like we ran into some starving coyotes. That was no coyote. They let us stay until dawn and then take us back to our camp in a Kubota. On the way, we find my spent brass and a shit ton of blood. They say I must have hit one, no shit, and the others dragged its body away to eat. Our camp is a total loss, shit thrown everywhere. Rangers help us clean up, and still insist it was coyotes. Just got back at 6 o'clock and have no idea what to think about this. Isn't the Michigan Dogman a known cryptid?